afternoon, everybody. I really hate to interrupt all the fellowship that is going on. We do have a very, very short program, and so I'd like to go ahead and get started with that. I am Patricia Wilson. I am the Associate Dean at the Law School, and I'm pleased to welcome you to this event honoring the Dean of the Law School. So on behalf of the law faculty and the law staff, we're glad that you are here. As I said, we are going to have a very short program. We're going to keep our comments brief because we want you to have time to speak with Brad and for you all to enjoy each other's company. We think it is appropriate, however, to formally recognize and honor Brad Toben for his more than 3 decades as Dean of the Law School and his 4 decades as a law professor at the law school. When Brad shared that he planned to step down as Dean and to return to the faculty, he was emphatic that he was not retiring, and that therefore there was no need to have an event to honor him. We could not let that stand. As he knows, we're a bit of an unruly group anyway, and so we basically ignored that. Brad, in fact, has had a profound impact on Baylor Law School and the lives of many Baylor lawyers. While he may be a little bit uncomfortable with all the attention he has received since his announcement, it is important for us to take time to say thank you to a successful dean, valued mentor, and a good friend to so many. Thank you, Brad. And thank you to all of you for being here to help us celebrate Brad's remarkable legacy as Dean of the Baylor Law School. I now call on Brian Sayre, Brad's longtime colleague and friend, sometimes nemesis, to share a few brief remarks.
None of my words are more than 4 syllables.
I didn't say short words, short remarks. He has promised me that he will not do a Sayre-a-thon, something familiar to all who've ever taken a course with Professor Sayre. Rather, he will keep his remarks short, and we are going to hold him to that. Brian.
We had a hard time finding a podium and a microphone to fit both Patricia and me. All right. First off, I'm grateful for the honor of presenting Brad a heartfelt gift, a surprise, for 31 years of inspirational leadership and service to our beloved law school. Maybe I've been awarded this honor as some form of penance, as there is surely nobody who more frequently knocked heads with Brad during those 31 years. And I still haven't figured out how such a kind and gentle man has such a solid head. Brad has certainly used those opportunities, and there were many, to school me on any number of topics. And most times I left his office persuaded that he was, well, less wrong than I thought when I walked in. But one visit to his office stands out, and he's going to know what this is. And Brad has never let me forget it because he absolutely shamed me to the point of intense personal embarrassment. Indeed, he was as mad as I've ever seen him, yelling at me loud enough to make his office walls reverberate. When I left, I was like a scolded dog with his tail between his legs, slipping out the back door of his office, sneaking through the dark conference room, escaping into the hall so that my friends and colleagues in the dean's office wouldn't know that I was the target of his tirade. The topic of my chewing out, nothing of seeming vital importance to the operation of the law school. It was Spirit Walker. Yeah, that big green bear monument in front of the law school. Now, over the years, Spirit Walker has become truly iconic, the focus of many new law school traditions. And we've all learned to love Spirit Walker. And, you know, is Daryl Keith here? Is Daryl here? It was Daryl's generous gift that brought us Spirit Walker, but I have to confess that some of us on the faculty were somewhat skeptical when Spirit Walker first arrived and took his place at the very front of the law school. He arrived on the back of a large truck and trailer in packing material, and several of us eventually gathered at the third-floor window to watch the spectacle unfolding below. Why, it's a large green bear, without paws, at the end of its short, outstretched arms. In part, our reticence was due to the common association of a green bear with the Baylor athletic program. Now, we're huge Baylor sports fans, but you need to remember that this was at a time when the football team was in the middle of 14 straight losing seasons. It was long before those 2 Big 12 championships, long before that Sugar Bowl victory, long before those 4 basketball national championships. Perhaps our skepticism was also because we are admittedly rather unsophisticated connoisseurs of fine art. In our defense, from our third-floor vantage point, we were not close enough to see the symbolic markings on the bear, showing a spiritual connection to the earth and to indigenous peoples. And of course, we did not yet know his name because Brad had not properly introduced us to the large green bear that he unilaterally decided would be the permanent maitre d' of the law school. But perhaps our initial impression of Spirit Walker was colored by what quickly appeared to be a unique opportunity to tease our esteemed leader, and that we did for several days, until it abruptly ended as a result of my sacrifice. On about the 3rd day of the Spirit Walker era, and failing to appreciate that Brad's patience with the teasing was beginning to wear a bit thin, I had an inspiration and marched up to Brad's office right after class. Brad, what if a donor wanted to condition a gift on my having to teach my classes in a bear suit? I'm curious, what price would you put on my dignity? I could tell he was not amused, but I plowed forward. We are thinking about having an online renaming contest. The funniest suggestion wins some kind of a prize. And with that, Brad simply exploded. I had never seen him so angry, not even close. It shook me. And I quickly headed for that back door and the back way out. Now, why was Brad so mad? Your first assumption would probably be incorrect. It was not at all about Brad's ego or sensitivity to our display of sarcastic disrespect for him. Instead, it was concerned that our humor might leak outside the building and possibly insult a treasured alum and generous donor. At his most angry, Brad was simply acting to protect the law school, which to Brad means protecting all of the law school's various constituencies. Brad's 31-year commitment to preserving and protecting, and indeed enhancing, our uniquely distinctive approach to legal education demonstrated a humble respect for the historical contributions of earlier leaders, such as Abner McCall and Angus McSwain. Brad was driven more by protecting their legacy and what they had helped build than by some ego-driven need to establish his own legacy. But establish his own legacy he did, and then some. And now, in May of 2023, we behold a law school and a legal program blessed by 3/4 of a century, McCall, McSwain, and now Toben, 3/4 of a century of selfless, principled, servant-oriented leadership. There are a number of qualities that make Brad special, that make Brad beloved. I think all of them begin with his unbelievable humility. Now, if I was alone with Brad, I'd probably tell him that he had a somewhat easier path to becoming a model of humility because God blessed him with a childhood devoid of both athletic prowess and popularity. But that doesn't begin to tell the story, given his amazing accomplishments as an adult, as a lawyer, as a professor, as a dean, as a leader. Just take a look at that amazing law school across the river from whatever your vantage point is. Brad, I have never met anyone who is as smart as you and as accomplished as you, who remains so sincerely and truly humble. That humility has translated into many benefits for the Baylor Law family. Those who work most closely with him and for him frequently remark that they are never motivated by fear, but always by a desire not to let Brad down. That's the best kind of motivation if you're one of the few who can inspire it. That humility is the lifeblood of a servant's heart, always striving to do his best for the purest of reasons, in service to others, in service to the legal profession. A profession that Brad appreciates and emphasizes is a service-oriented profession dedicated to producing a measure of justice in a broken world. And that humility comes from a deep-seated faith that fits squarely within Baylor's traditional Christian mission, and that makes Brad a daily example of the verse from the book of Micah on the side of the law school. What does the Lord require of you but to do justice, to love mercy, and to walk humbly with your God? I'm guessing the Lord is looking down saying, well done, my good and faithful servant. And on behalf of faculty, staff, past and present, Baylor lawyers here today, Baylor lawyers far and wide, we're saying with this gift, well done. We respect you, we admire you, we love you. I've exceeded the minutes that Pat allotted me, but one more sentence, please. Like a living, breathing spirit walker, may your spirit, Brad, continue to walk with and lead Baylor Law School. And now, Brad, you may approach the bench and approach your gift. Now, just wait before you touch this. I have been told to warn you, people are concerned that something will break, possibly your foot. So please follow these instructions to the letter, okay? Pull one side of the bow. Okay, now remove the top gently and step back.
I'm kind of emotionally overcome by all you being here. This is something that it meets my heart right here, and it will remain right here, just like all of you in Baylor Law School are here and will always remain here. Brian, thank you so much. Brian and I are dear friends. Brian did the best he could on the time limitation. He's not. Many years ago, Brian started a habit of coming to my office right before he was going to class, usually about 20 minutes before going. And Brian is really smart and very engaging. But I came to a point where when he did this every morning, I finally had to tell Brian, I'm glad you're coming, and I enjoy talking to you about 20 or 30 minutes before your class each day, but I need to get work done too. And so I made a deal with Brian that he could come and I would continue working and I would be responsive. But But the reason I've always enjoyed Brian is because he's got real smarts, and he has, like all of us, he's the epitome of having Baylor Law School at his heart. He's not a Baylor lawyer, but he might as well be a Baylor lawyer because he holds the law school in the best interest of the law school right here. Spirit Walker, yeah, got made fun of a lot. Still gets made fun of by folks who come up. He used to be real bright green, and now he's kind of, with his age, tempered his color a little bit. But as many of you may know, I've always defended Spirit Walker and by noting that art is intended to be evocative, and by that measure, Spirit Walker's been way successful. am going to keep it short here, but I'm going to begin with first things first. Brian, thank you for noting my faith. I'm a person of faith. I've always relied upon Jesus Christ to lead my way in everything that I do. And I want to begin by acknowledging my Lord and Savior for all the blessings that I have enjoyed in this life. And you know, whenever we have honored someone at the law school, I have always also taken note of the fact that nothing occurs unless it's done as a team. And if someone has a spouse or a significant other, I always want to acknowledge them. And so I would like to have my team come up here. Beth and our son John, our daughter Sarah Beth and her fiance Matt, my brother Tom, and my sister-in-law Cammie. If you could all come forward, please. I want you to see them because this is a team that's been behind me for the last lots of years. Beth and I, we've been married almost 42 years, and I have always said there is no one in this world I'd rather see come around the corner than Beth Toben. And Brian, that bit about my not having athletic ability, you're right. I don't. I have a hard time throwing a ball straight. It just is not in me. You all have heard of Gregor Mendel. Of course, he was the scientist, the monk who figured out how genes and so forth work. He didn't know the molecular part of it, but he knew that if you combine this type of beam with this type of beam, that they would have this type of beam. And John played football at Oklahoma State, and Sarah Beth pitched for the Lady Bears here at Baylor. And I've just always said, I am living proof of Mendelian recessive genes. We are so delighted, Matt, to have you joining the family later this year. Sarah Beth and Matt are engaged to be married in November, and it's going to be right here in Waco, and we're so happy to have you as part of our family. Tom, you've kept me straight as my older brother ever since we were tots, and I've I've learned so much from you. Tom is a retired architect, and I so admire the work that you have done. I became a great admirer of architects when we built the Law Center. They see the world in a very different way than we see it. And Cammie, thank you for being such a support for the family all these years. And we so appreciate each of you. Each of you, thank you, thank you, thank you. Back in 1974, the fall of 1974, I was getting ready to graduate from the University of Missouri St. Louis, and I was in front of an elevator there waiting to go down. And I looked over to the right because the elevator was not coming. And what I saw there was one of those purple mimeograph one-sheet announcements. It had Baylor Law School on it, and it had something on it about classes began in February and May and August. And I took note of it. I did not know where Baylor was. I could not have told you at that moment, but for the fact that there was an address, 1400 Fifth Street, at the bottom of the notice. And as part of my faith life, I have always told folks that God will lead you around corners that you never anticipated, and it's always going to be a good corner. That day, I stole that notice. I took the little white tack out, I put it in my pocket, and wrote away for an application sheet. You got back one sheet at that time, fill it out, send it back, and I got accepted. And I was a dweeb. That's why I wanted to start right away in February. I didn't want to wait until the following August. And so I left St. Louis, and I arrived here in Waco one day before classes on a Sunday. Classes began on a Monday. And I got a boarding house room down on 12th Street, and that began my Baylor journey. And I often look back and I think, what if I had not needed to take the elevator that day? But God is in control, and that's why I was at that elevator, and that's why that notice was there. He was leading me around a corner. I came to Baylor Law School, and I was impacted by the teaching. just absolutely impacted by the teaching. It was teaching I had never seen before, caring about students that I had not experienced before. I had some good teachers coming up who I admire and respect, but this place was different. It had some quality, some character about the investment of the school and its students that could not be passed up by anyone who was paying a whit of attention. And during the course of my time at the law school, I was mentored, truly mentored, by David Gwynn, my dear friend David Gwynn, who we lost, and 54 years on the law faculty, and my dear friend. I was mentored by Dean McSwain. Stuart, you're in the audience, I think, somewhere here, Stuart McSwain, who's a Baylor lawyer. I was mentored kind of indirectly by Dean McSwain. I just admired who that man was. Talk about humility, talk about putting others before self. You can be mentored sometimes in quiet ways, and that's what Dean McSwain was for me. And then there was Mad Dog Dawson. We all, of course, who had him remember him in terror, but he was a softie. And Matt, on a couple occasions, took me aside, and he said, "I think, Brad, that you might want to take a try at teaching." He could see the dweeb in me, and I said, "Maybe so." And I got to thinking about it because I love books so much, and I decided, yeah, I'm going to do that. I went to St. Louis. I practiced with the firm there for 3.5 years, and then I went on to Boston, and I got a LLM degree. And I started my teaching career at the school, Indiana University in Indianapolis, and there I met Beth. It was a love story. I'm going to tell you something you may not know. Beth was my student. Okay, if you want to go shock, you can take a moment. We'll all go shock. It was a different day and time. It was a large public. No, I'm not even going to try it. I'm not even going to try it, but I'll trump any other comment upon marrying your student by saying God led me to Beth, and God trumps. God trumps. Led me around another corner, and she's been my dearest person in my life, along with our kids ever since then for 42 years. But I left Baylor Law School knowing that I wanted to teach because of what I had seen in my mentors, whom I just mentioned there. And so the opportunity came while I was in my second year at IU. Dean McSwain called me in 1982 and wanted to know whether I wanted to interview for a position on the faculty. I said, "Dean, I would just love to do that. It'd be my dream, but Beth and I are getting married in a few weeks, and it just won't be possible. But please call me back next year if something is available." And he did. And we came down, and it was one of those corners. I was absolutely beside myself with joy when I got the offer, because I wanted to do what Dean McSwain and what Mad Dog and what David did in the classroom, and I was blessed by that. Being dean of the law school it's a position in which you receive just a whole lot of blessing. I love people. You all know that. I just love people. I love being around people, talking, sharing stories, and having fun. And it's a position in which you get to have a lot of fun meeting lots and lots of people. But specifically, you get to meet folks in all the different constituencies of Baylor Law School. You get to meet someone who has a solo practice in Victoria, Texas. You get to meet someone who has an M&A practice in one of the big tall buildings in Dallas or Houston. You get to meet judges in their chambers. Oh my heavens, I have been so blessed by all the stories of Baylor lawyers. You get to meet the constituencies of the law school. You begin to see the law school as you're in the position through the eyes of the students, the faculty, and staff partners. You get to see the law school through the eyes of the university, through the eyes of the alum, through the eyes of the profession, and it's all blessing. And God bless me. God bless me that I've been able to share in this journey with each of you for the last 31 years. I'll end with this. We're here, all of us are here, no matter what you do. You're here to serve. You're here to make an impact in other people's lives. That's the measure of a life, what you can do in impacting the life of someone else. It may be one person, it may be a lot of persons, but make sure that your life has stood for a difference in the life of others. And I've been so happy in this work because we get to come into, my colleagues and I get to come into a building every day where we have hundreds, 400 plus 20-somethings. Some are older, most are in their 20s, and they are on the precipice of their professional lives. They're already adults, but they're on the precipice of their professional lives as adults. And the enterprise of Baylor Law School is to get them ready to practice, get them ready to serve their clients. Teaching at Baylor is the #1 priority. And that may sound like a truism, but that's not the way it is across most of higher education. And that's a loss for our nation and for our youth. Teaching is the #1 priority at Baylor Law School. And Baylor Law School is not just distinctive, it is unique in our approach to getting students, as they develop into Baylor lawyers, ready to actually make a difference in practice, in the practice of their craft, to serve others, as we are all called to do. And those are 2 points. Teaching is #1, and we're all about making sure that our students go forward, recognizing that they're entering a serving profession and that there's a great expectation that they will have the impact of which I speak. And when you walk into the Law Center every morning and you realize that that is what is happening in this venue, that's enough to make any day a good day, absolutely an outstanding day. And with that, I want to tell you, I'm not retiring. If you congratulated me tonight on retirement, it's okay. It's okay. I'm not retiring. I'm going to remain at the law school. Pat is going to be our interim dean for the next year, and if she asks me to help with anything, I'm going to do it, but only to the extent that she asks and no further, because I don't want to be that person. And our law school is going to be well so long as we keep our priorities in line as we look for the next dean. We need to keep our priorities in line. We need to remember what Baylor Law School is, what has made it great, and what will continue to make it great, and what our mission is and what our priorities are. So long as we keep our eye on that star, Baylor Law School is going to be so fine, so distinctive, so unique, and so successful. And we're going to thrive, and we're going to develop still more Baylor lawyers. And I have to end, Baylor lawyers, I'm really pleased how this has worked out over the past several years. You know me, if you write it or type it or print it, capital B because it's a proper noun, capital L because Baylor lawyer is not just a descriptor, it is a brand. We're different. We are different. Let's make sure that we remain different as we go forward. And I want to thank all my colleagues for this incredible gathering today. My heavens. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And that's it.
Hello, everyone. I'm Angela Cruz-Turner, and I serve as the Senior Assistant Dean at the law school. And talk about impacting someone's life. Brad Toben has impacted my life, but I'm not going to look over at him as I say that. Before we wrap up the program, I have one quick announcement that we will share publicly next week, but wanted you to know about it today. As many of you know, the Baylor Law Alumni Association chooses one Baylor lawyer each year to designate as the Baylor Lawyer of the Year. The criteria for selection are the nominee's achievements as a lawyer, contribution to the legal profession, standing in the profession, Christian faith, civic, religious, and other attainments, and of course, their active interest in Baylor Law School. This year, the Alumni Association received letters from lawyers all over the country and Baylor Law faculty and staff nominating one Baylor lawyer who fulfills these criteria perhaps better than any other Baylor lawyer. And of course, that was Dean Brad Toben. We recently surprised Brad with this announcement of this honor at a gathering of Baylor Law faculty and staff. But please join me again in congratulating Brad for his selection as the 2023 Baylor Lawyer of the Year and thanking him for his years of exemplary service to Baylor Law School. Again, thank you for joining us. Your presence is meaningful to Brad and to the Toben family and to the Baylor Law family. Please stay and continue to enjoy the celebration.